The police came to Aziza's house right away after her father's frantic call. They looked very confused when they saw the massive muddy footprints and jungle plants all over the living room. "What in the world?" one officer muttered while taking pictures. "This has to be some kind of prank," the other officer said skeptically. "Tracking all this mud and vegetation inside doesn't seem funny, though." Aziza's father shook his head adamantly. "I swear, officers, we have no idea how this got here. We were just sitting down to watch TV and then my son saw... well, he thought he saw a monster creature." Raj was still trembling as he explained what happened. "I just went to the living room to grab a soda from the kitchen. When I turned on the light, there was this giant, hairy monster standing in the middle of the room. It was taller than Dad, with long arms and bony fingers. It turned and looked right at me with these crazy red eyes and mouth full of fangs. Then it let out this horrific roar and I ran out screaming." The police officers exchanged doubtful looks as Raj's mother comforted him. "Son, I know you got a fright," the first officer said gently. "But seeing actual monsters, maybe you just imagined it, or it was a trick of shadows and lights or something." "No, I know what I saw," Raj yelled insistently. His whole body shook. "It was a real-life monster like the ones from a scary horror movie. You have to believe me." Aziza watched the whole scene calmly, deep in thought. She recognized the mud and plants. They were exactly like the vegetation from the cursed jungle she had traveled, which must mean Raj had indeed encountered one of the evil jungle's awful beasts. Somehow, the ancient forces she thought she had defeated were not done with her yet. They were able to reach out and send one of their monsters right into her home, perhaps as a warning, or the start of something bigger. Aziza cleared her throat to get everyone's attention. "It's all connected to me," she said firmly. "Ever since my awakening in the cursed jungle, I'm bound to its magic and the dark powers there. They must be after me again for some reason." Her parents shot her frustrated looks, but Raj studied her with surprising intensity. The police officers frowned at Aziza. "Miss, I don't know what you're talking about with jungles and magic," the first officer said seriously. "But if you had anything to do with this incident, whatever prank or stunt this is, it needs to stop right now." Aziza shook her head adamantly. "This is no prank, officer. I finally experienced what I was born to become, a human embodiment of a powerful river spirit. That jungle and its inhabitants were all too real." Gesturing at the muddy footprints, she continued, "Those markings could only have been left by one of the jungle's native beasts, like the creature my brother described. Evil, shape-shifting monsters that serve the cursed land's dark forces. They must be summoning me back for some reason after my awakening." Both officers' jaws dropped, and even Aziza's family was stunned into silence by her crazy insistence. Finally, the second officer stepped forward. "Okay, Mom, that's enough nonsense out of you. We're doing our job here, investigating an incident, not listening to wild monster stories." He took out his handcuffs with a serious look. "If you don't pipe down, I'll have to take you in on suspicion of this being a deranged stunt." Aziza looked at her parents pleadingly. "You have to believe me. That jungle was real. The evil spirits were trying to corrupt my soul and stop me from realizing my true destiny. When I awakened as the river's human guardian, I thought I stopped the ancient curse over the land, but now it seems the dark forces are still hunting me." The police didn't believe Aziza's crazy story about monsters and magic jungles, but her family knew there was some truth in what she said. after the strange plants and footprints appeared. They convinced the officers that Aziza sometimes got confused, but meant no harm. Once the police left, Aziza's parents demanded to know what was really going on. Raj backed up his sister, saying he truly saw a terrifying monster creature appear briefly before it vanished. Aziza explained again about her journey into the cursed jungle to break an ancient evil spell. She described the evil beasts and dark magic she battled to finally join with the river goddess spirit and become its immortal human guardian. "I thought I defeated the curse's foul forces," Aziza said gravely. "But it seems they are still able to reach out from the jungle and attack me in this world now." She immediately had a flashback on how everything started. 3 months earlier, she recalled when she asked her parents if she could go hiking and have a picnic in the woods outside the city over the weekend. They agreed as long as she was careful. The day of her hike finally arrived. Aziza packed a backpack with snacks, water, and a blanket. She took a bus to the entry point of the woods and started hiking along the narrow dirt path winding through the dense trees. After an hour, Aziza came to a clearing with a vast river cutting through it. The river's murky water flowed rapidly over rocks and around bends. Aziza decided this would be the perfect spot for her picnic. She spread out her blanket on the riverbank and unpacked her food. As Aziza ate, she admired the river's mysterious power. She had always felt drawn to bodies of water. Suddenly, Aziza thought she saw something move in the river. A human-like form breached the surface for just a second before splashing back under. Aziza stared in confusion, wondering if her eyes played tricks on her. She continued eating, dismissing what she saw as her imagination. But then she heard an ethereal singing unlike anything she'd ever heard. La la la, la la la. The haunting melody seemed to come from the river itself, weaving in and out of the rushing currents. Aziza looked around but saw no one. The singing grew louder and more enchanting. She felt compelled to follow it into the river against her better judgment. Aziza waded in deeper and deeper until the water reached her waist. That's when something grabbed her leg and yanked her fully underwater. Aziza thrashed and kicked, opening her eyes to see the human-like form from before swimming in front of her. It was a mermaid with green, scaly skin and a powerful tail thrashing back and forth. The mermaid opened her mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth. She screeched at Aziza in a language she couldn't comprehend. Then everything went black. When Aziza regained consciousness, she was lying on a sandy shore illuminated by a strange glowing moss. Her clothes and backpack were gone, leaving her in just her undergarments. Aziza looked around at the cave surrounding her. Rock formations hung from the high ceiling, dripping water into shallow pools. The only exit seemed to be the underground river she had been pulled into. The mermaid suddenly surfaced in one of the pools. "Welcome to my home, the ancient refuge of the river goddess Oguvi," she said in Nigerian English. What are you?" Aziza stammered, scooting back in fear. "I am the last of the river mermaid, charged with guarding Oguvi's sacred waters from surface dwellers like you," the mermaid replied. "I have not left these caves in over 20,000 years. I have been trapped here for so long." Aziza's mind raced, realizing the severity of her predicament. If the stories she had heard as a child were true, mermaids were not to be trifled with. "Please, I didn't mean any disrespect," Aziza pleaded. "I was just hiking and picnicking. I'll leave right away." The mermaid laughed, her sharp teeth baring menacingly. "You are not going anywhere, human. You are the chosen one who will release me and my kind from this underground prison." "What are you talking about? I don't know anything about you or this goddess," Aziza said, fighting back tears. The mermaid swam closer, her tail flicking back and forth like a snake ready to strike. "Long ago, my ancestors revered and protected the river goddess Oguvi. We were her guardians," the mermaid explained. "But the surface people turned against us and Oguvi, seeing us as monsters rather than mythical stewards of nature." Aziza listened intently, too terrified to respond. The mermaid continued. "Oguvi rescued us by encasing these underground caves in an invisible shield powered by her magic. She made us a deal. If we remained loyal and kept the river's waters pure, one day a human woman with Oguvi's bloodline would come and combine her life force with ours. This would remove the shield and return us to the surface to reign over the rivers once more." "And you think that human is me?" Aziza asked cautiously. The mermaid cackled, showing razor-sharp teeth. "I know it is you, foolish girl. I have been dreaming of you for centuries. You have Oguvi's cursed blood pulsing through your veins, passed down by your ancestors who betrayed her." The mermaid lunged at Aziza with impossible speed, wrapping a scaly hand around her neck and squeezing. Aziza gasped for air as she was dragged towards the glowing pool. "By combining my life force with yours, the curse will be lifted and I will become the true river goddess. We will enslave the surface world just as they once did to us." Aziza thrashed and kicked, managing to break free for a second. She scrambled away towards the cave's exit, not caring about the dangers of the raging underground river. But the mermaid was too fast. With a powerful lash of her tail, she knocked Aziza back down and pounced, straddling her and pinning her arms to the ground. The mermaid opened her mouth unnaturally wide, displaying 3 inward curved rows of teeth coated with a green liquid, venom to immobilize prey. She leaned down, her venom-dripping mouth inches from Aziza's face. Aziza squeezed her eyes shut and turned away, whimpering in terror as the end drew near. Suddenly, the mermaid reeled back, screeching in agony. Aziza opened her eyes to see a large creature resembling a shrimp with massive pincers had attacked the mermaid, tearing into her arm with its claws. The mermaid released Aziza and frantically tried shaking off the shrimp beast. 2 more of the creatures darted out and went for the mermaid's tail. Seizing her chance, Aziza scrambled to her feet and sprinted towards the underground river, figuring being swallowed by the torrents was preferable to being eaten alive. She jumped in and allowed the raging currents to pull her away from the cave. Aziza held her breath as she was tossed violently through the tight winding tunnels. Just when she thought she would pass out from lack of air, Aziza was suddenly expelled from the river's mouth in a burst of white water. She gasped for air as she found herself in the open air once again. Aziza coughed and choked, pulling herself up on the riverbank. Miraculously, she had emerged from the underground just outside the city woods where her hike had started. She laid back on the grass, trying to process the wild events that had unfolded. Had it all been some sort of deranged nightmare? Or was there truth behind the vengeful river mermaid's claims about her being descended from a cursed river goddess? Aziza knew one thing. She would never stray from the city again or go near another body of water, no matter how drawn to it she felt. The woods and rivers harbored dangers she couldn't begin to comprehend. As she caught her breath, Aziza looked down at her arm and gasped in horror. There, beneath the mud and grime, her veins were glowing an ethereal blue, the same unearthly light as the cave's pools, and she passed out. Aziza's eyes opened slowly. At first, everything was blurry, but then she could see clearly that she was lying on an old rough mat made of straw on the floor of some kind of cave. The walls were made of damp dirt and had weird drawings and symbols all over them that Aziza didn't understand. In the middle of the cave was a small fire burning, which was the only light. "She's awake now," said a deep, rough voice coming from the shadows. Then a huge figure stepped out where Aziza could see it better. It was over 7 feet tall, with greyish leathery skin and a big ridge over its eyes that stuck out. Its body looked extremely muscular and strong, and it was covered in coarse hair all over. Aziza gasped in fright and tried to scramble backwards away from the monster, but it raised up one massive hand. "Don't be scared, child. You're safe here, at least for now," it rumbled. What are you?" Aziza stammered, her heart pounding hard in her chest. The creature looked like it had stepped out of her worst nightmares. "I am a Shitari," the beast answered in its deep, rumbling voice. "A guardian sworn to protect the ancient river goddess Oguvi and her sacred waters and jungles all around." Aziza's mind raced as she tried to take this in. So the mermaid creature she had met really was telling the truth about there being ancient guardians protecting this river and goddess. "The mermaid," Aziza said hesitantly. "She told me I had Oguvi's bloodline, that I was supposed to join with her kind of creatures to break some kind of curse." The huge Shitari slowly nodded its great head. "The mermaid spoke the truth, though her intentions were wicked. You are the chosen human who is destined to awaken as the physical form of Oguvi, the goddess reborn on this world." Aziza shook her head adamantly. "That's totally crazy. I'm just a normal girl. This has to be some wild dream I'm having." "I assure you it is very real," the Shitari said grimly. "The glowing lines underneath your skin that look like veins are proof that the spirit of Oguvi lies dormant within your body. The time has arrived for you to fully accept and embrace your destined role." Aziza looked down at her arm and could indeed see the eerie pulsing blue glow just below the surface of her skin, like visible veins, but glowing. A cold chill went down her spine. "Long ago, in the ancient times, my Shitari kind watched over and protected Oguvi's jungles and the sacred river, alongside the mermaids who lived in the waters," the massive guardian continued. "We all lived together in peace and harmony as the spiritual guardians of the land, river, and nature." Its huge fists clenched tightly. "But then the human settlers came to this region, and they saw us as nothing but monsters that should be hunted and killed. After centuries of violent warfare between humans and US Guardians, Oguvi made a terrible sacrifice to try to save those of us who remained." Aziza listened raptly, still having trouble believing anything the Shitari was telling her was real, yet also feeling deep down that it spoke the truth. "Oguvi split her living spirit essence into 2 parts, the Guardian explained. One half she embedded into the body of a human female who was a direct descendant of her bloodline, and the other half of her spirit essence remained here in this sacred jungle, granting us the magic to erect cloaking barriers that have hidden us away from the human world all this time." It leaned forward intensely, locking its large amber eyes on Aziza. "You are the living reincarnation of that sacred human bloodline, carrying half of Oguvi's spirit within you over all these generations. If you were to reunite her split halves by fully awakening her spirit essence inside your body, You could restore Ogilvy as the all-powerful river goddess reborn into human form. Aziza's head spun as she tried to process this utterly unbelievable revelation about her apparent destiny and spiritual importance. Some part of her still refused to actually believe any of it could possibly be real. But the evidence was right there for her to see, glowing under her very skin. So, just say I actually do have this goddess's spirit inside me somehow, Aziza said carefully, trying to wrap her mind around it. What would happen if I did this reawaken thing you're talking about? What would it mean for me? What would I have to do? The Shitari's expression grew very somber. If you reunited Ogilvy's spirit and awakened as her human avatar form, you would become an immortal living embodiment of the river goddess herself. Your existence would be eternally intertwined with her sacred river, jungles, and all of nature under her dominion. With your human form restraining and containing a portion of Ogilvy's infinite power, you could walk the surface world as her corporeal representative and enforcer, carrying out her will and mandate to defend the natural world. It let those heavy words sink in for a moment before adding, embracing such a role would, of course, require you to permanently sever all ties to your former human life, family, friends, and pursuits. They would have to be left behind forever once you fully took on your new responsibilities as the awakened avatar of Ogilvy reborn. Aziza's breath caught in her throat as she tried to imagine such an existence. Never again seeing her parents, her younger brother, or any of her friends and loved ones. Having to give up any normal human dreams, ambitions, or living experiences she might have had. All in order to become some kind of all-powerful nature goddess warrior figure. It was overwhelming even to consider. But before Aziza could sort through her flying thoughts and emotions enough to respond, a sudden hair-raising shriek echoed from somewhere outside the cave entrance. The Shitari immediately tensed, rising up again to its full towering height in alarm. "The mermaids have found us here," it growled, its voice echoing through the room. "They want to catch you before you can become Ogilvy's avatar. They plan to use her power to control both the humans on land and in the water for their own purposes." More shrieks answered the first one, joined by a sickening wet flapping and slapping sound that was rapidly drawing nearer. Aziza felt panic clawing at her chest as her breathing became shallow and rapid. Without warning, the Shitari scooped her up effortlessly in one of its massive hair-covered arms, cradling her close to its barrel chest with surprising gentleness, given its immense size and strength. "We must flee at once, child," it told her urgently. "The mermaid's rage and vengeance against Ogilvy's heirs knows no bounds or limits. I will keep you safe and guard you with my life until you decide your own path, whether that is to heed the call and embrace your destiny as the awakened embodiment of the goddess, or to turn away from it all and return to your former human life." Holding Aziza tightly, the Shitari ran quickly through a small tunnel at the back of the cave. They got out just in time, as a group of scary mermaid-like creatures slithered in through the main entrance. Aziza saw many eel-like monsters with big, sharp teeth. Their wide mouths opened and snapped, making a scary hissing sound as they smelled their prey. Even more frightening, their eel-like bodies moved smoothly over the cave floor, even though they had no legs, moving fast towards them. Aziza tried hard to keep quiet as the mermaid-like creatures got closer. She followed the Shitari quickly through the twisting underground tunnel. She knew that if she made even one scared sound, those creatures would find them right away. their awful cries echoing through the tight space. They kept turning through one tunnel after another, and Aziza had no way to know where they were going. The air got worse and worse as they went deeper underground. Aziza held onto the Shitari, her eyes closed against the complete darkness around them. Only their heavy breathing and the Shitari's loud footsteps broke the silence. Then, a scary screech came from far behind them. The mermaid-like creatures were still chasing, using their sharp senses to follow. The Shitari moved faster, rushing through the darkness towards somewhere unknown. Suddenly, a little light showed up ahead. As they got closer, Aziza saw a huge cave with tall, rocky walls. A big pool of water glowed faintly in the middle, with a small stream feeding it. Without stopping, the Shitari jumped into the freezing water, pulling Aziza under. She squeezed her eyes shut again, trying not to gasp as the icy water surrounded them. They seemed to swim forever before the Shitari kicked up, surfacing in a smaller cave dimly lit by glowing mushrooms. "We'll be safe here for now," the Shitari rumbled, pulling itself onto a ledge and gently setting Aziza down. "But the mermaids won't stop until they find you." "What are we going to do?" Aziza panted, pushing her wet hair from her eyes. The Shitari's eyes looked very serious. "You must fully wake up Oguvi's spirit inside you. Only with her power can you hope to drive back the mermaid's forces." It held out an old staff, decorated with glowing gems. When the Shitari held it, the runes flashed green, lighting up the cave with an eerie green glow. "You must become Oguvi's human form, her living self, to protect this land." Aziza looked at the ancient being, barely understanding the huge responsibility given to her. But the urgent look in its eyes showed her there was no other choice. The entrance to the cave shook with huge impacts, like massive things hitting it from outside. The Shitari tensed, raising its staff as more crashes echoed. Aziza clutched her chest as Oguvi's essence inside her responded, ready to be reborn. A loud and terrifying scream filled the cave, announcing the arrival of the mermaid-like creature's elite monsters. Determination filled the Shitari's eyes. "Get ready, child," it said seriously. "The fight for this land is about to begin." From the tunnel entrance, a giant wriggling creature started to come out. It looked like a huge eel, 50 feet long, with a mouth big enough to swallow a horse. Rows of sharp teeth lined its jaws. More scary creatures slithered out behind it, just as monstrous. The Shitari sent out a bright green light from its staff, pushing the mermaid-like creatures back. "Aziza, you must act now!" it shouted. "Open yourself to Oguvi's power!" Aziza froze, unable to believe how crazy this was. How could she, a normal teenage girl, ever become an all-powerful nature goddess? The lead monster lunged forward, dodging the Shitari's staff blast. Its wide-open mouth and sharp tongues reached for Aziza. She scrambled back, pressing against the cave wall. At that moment, she felt something deep inside her unlock. The glowing lines under her skin blazed bright blue. Oguvi's ancient awareness filled Aziza's mind. Power surged through her veins as the sacred river's unstoppable essence joined with her very being. Aziza stood up, her eyes shining like bright blue oceans. With a sweep of her arm, bright blue energy tendrils lashed out, catching the lead monster's tongues and flinging it back. The mermaid-like creatures recoiled from Aziza's newfound power. She felt Oguvi's control over the waterways and life of this land flow through her. "I am the Avatar," Aziza's voice rang out with the unmistakable tone of the awakened river goddess. "And this land is mine to protect." With an upraised hand, she called forth a massive water tendril from the cave pool, lashing it against the tunnel mouth and causing the stone to crack. The Shetari quickly raised a shield as the cave began to collapse inward, cutting off the mermaid-like creature's path. For now, they were safe. But Aziza knew this was only the start of an ancient conflict reborn. Aziza was now at home again, with her mum, dad, and brother. She was no longer thinking about the strange things that happened in the woods that she wanted to tell her family about. Aziza said to them, "That's all I remember. Maybe what I said in the hospital about Kamari and the river goddess was important, but I don't fully get it yet. I'm sure I met a mermaid at the river who wanted to kill me and take my powers. I also remember seeing the Shetari, who helped me find the power inside me." Her father shook his head. "Aziza, you were so dehydrated in those woods. Who knows what you really saw? This monster and jungle talk has to stop." But Aziza insisted it was all real, and the monster showing up in their home proved the evil forces were after her again, though she didn't know why. The family argued a lot. Aziza's parents thought she had a mental breakdown in the jungle that made her imagine everything. Surprisingly, Raj took his sister's side, saying he saw the creature too, so it had to be real somehow. Finally, Aziza's mother burst into tears. "I don't care what's real or not. I just want to protect my family from whatever terrible forces are here." That night, strange noises came from Aziza's room. Her parents rushed in to find her missing from bed. Suddenly, a scream echoed through the house. They ran downstairs and saw Aziza being dragged out the front door by something invisible. Raj tried to grab her, but was thrown back by an unseen force. Their mother fainted as the front door slammed shut, leaving only Aziza's terrified screams. In panic and tears, her father called the police right away, fearing the worst, that his daughter had been kidnapped, or even worse fate. Officers searched the house and the area around it, but found no signs of a break-in or struggle. It was as if Aziza had vanished into thin air, just like she had described, happening to her in the cursed jungle months earlier. When the police could not find Aziza, her very worried parents thought that maybe evil forces from the ancient jungle that their daughter talked about had finally taken her. They did not understand everything, but they knew that powerful bad magic was involved. Against their better judgment, they found a local witch doctor named Mama Shibanga, who claimed to know about the supernatural, occult, and African folklore. Many people recommended her, even though her practices were mysterious. "Please, you must help us," begged Aziza's mother when Mama Shibanga came to their home. "Evil spirits have taken our daughter. We don't know what kind of dark forces are at work." The old witch doctor looked them over with her clouded eyes as she entered. "I see. So the signs were true. The ancient river goddess's cursed bloodline has been awakened again." She slowly walked through the house, running her bony fingers along surfaces and muttering words under her breath that they could not understand. Aziza's parents followed behind, unsure what to make of Mama Shibanga's strange methods. Finally, the witch doctor stopped in Aziza's bedroom and crouched down to look at some small scuff marks on the floor that the police had missed. "Yes, I understand now," Mama Shibanga whispered. "Your daughter's spiritual power was very great, the reborn river goddess's powers in human form. Such light was too tempting for the jungle's dark forces." She turned to Aziza's parents, her face serious. "They have taken her to the legendary river's breath, a secret cursed place where the boundary between this world and the next is torn apart. Your daughter is trapped in a hellish in-between realm, being forcibly made part of the jungle's evil group of river undead." Aziza's parents were confused and scared. Mama Shibanga explained more. You see, a long time ago, the river goddess ruled these lands along with the human people. But their powers were misused, and the evil forces deep in the jungle killed the goddess. To punish the river people for turning away from her, the goddess put a bad curse on those left when she died. They would become undead river beings. Their bodies would slowly rot and melt until their spirits were taken by the river waters. Aziza's father's eyes went wide. Are you saying these evil jungle spirits turned our little girl into some kind of rotting river zombie? Mama Shibanga slowly nodded. I'm afraid that is exactly their plan. Though she would stay undead, serving their evil plans forever as a corrupted version of the reborn river goddess. Aziza's mother burst into tears, her cries echoing through the house. How could such evil forces exist to torment their innocent family like this? Her father pulled himself together, determination hardening his face. Please, there must be some way to save our Aziza from this fate. To bring her back normal before she becomes one of these undead monsters. The witch doctor looked thoughtful for a moment. Finally, she nodded and said, There is one way, dangerous and unlikely to work, but still a way. You must join me in going to the river's breath place itself on the night of the next new moon. There, we may have one chance to talk to the lingering spirit of the river goddess and beg her to take back her reborn power before it becomes corrupted. Aziza's parents exchanged a determined look and nodded together. They would risk any danger to save their daughter's soul from eternal damnation. Over the next few weeks leading up to the new moon, Mama Shibanga taught Aziza's parents basic defensive spells and rituals meant to temporarily shield them from the dark jungle forces. She also had them take part in daily cleansing rituals, burning special herbs and chanting to clear their spirits of fear, so they would be mentally ready for the hellish journey into the river's breath. When the night of the new moon finally arrived, Mama Shibanga led them deep into the most isolated section of the woods outside the city, guiding them along a hidden trail only she could see. We must move quickly and in total silence, the witch doctor warned in a hushed voice as they crept through the inky darkness, their path lit only by her bobbing lantern. The jungle's eyes and ears are everywhere. Aziza's parents exchanged nervous looks, their hearts thumping with every snapped twig under their feet. They could feel the jungle's sinister presence all around them, growing more intense with each step. After what felt like hours of tense walking through suffocating plants, Mama Shibanga stopped abruptly, holding up her hand to halt them. She pointed ahead silently. In the distance, through a rotting break in the ancient trees, they could see the river current rapidly churning and bubbling in unnatural ways. Strange, colorful lights flickered and glowed from under the water's surface. There, Mama Shibanga whispered grimly. The river's breath, a tier where this world meets the undead plain, the outer edges of the jungle's domain, where your daughter now suffers unimaginable torment. Aziza's parents stared at the haunting alien river in stunned silence, their hearts sinking with grim realization of what lay ahead. The witch doctor turned to face them, her features hardened by deadly seriousness. From this point on, there is no path but through the river itself. You will be stepping directly into the dwelling of the darkest, most vicious supernatural evils. The jungle's undead prowl endlessly in the waters, looking for fresh souls to consume and corrupt into their vile tribe. She held up an amulet made of bones and river rocks, chanting secret words over it to fill it with protective magic. When she finished, Mama Shibanga handed it to Aziza's father. This amulet will shield your spirit from being trapped in the river's waters and falling into their dark grasp. You must bind it around your chests as we cross. No matter what, do not let go of each other's hands or you will become separated. And once apart in this place, the undead river fiends will descend upon you without mercy." Aziza's parents agreed, ready to do anything to get their daughter back. They took off their shoes and socks, tied the charm around their chests as told, and followed Mama Shibanga into the warm, cursed river. As soon as their legs went under, it felt like 1,000,000 claws and teeth were scratching their skin, leaving red marks and making them bleed. Mama Shibanga held their hands firmly and led them forward, calmly chanting protection words. They waded deeper into the churning river, with every scary step. Suddenly, terrifying screams and cries came from under the muddy water as they went further in. Dark shapes twisted in gross ways just under the surface around them. Aziza's mother whimpered, squeezing her husband's hand tighter as they pushed on determinedly. The hellish noise grew louder, joined by wet slapping sounds, as if creepy creatures were rising from the riverbed. Then, the first undead river monster surfaced in front of them, its twisted, human-like form decaying as it stared at the intruders with soulless eyes. More and more undead beings came up, clawing at them with long nails and lashing rancid tongues through drooling mouths filled with jagged teeth. Mama Shibanga shouted over the deafening noise, saying ancient banishing words that made the river fiends shriek and temporarily retreat. But they would only stay back as long as the chant continued. Hours seemed to crawl by in this nightmare, the family struggling hard to keep the ritual going as the endless hordes surrounded them from all sides, clawing and grabbing. The cold water turned red from their bleeding wounds as the undead horde closed in. Mama Shibanga chanted more frantically, sweating hard from the effort of holding off the ravenous fiends. Just as the protective spell seemed about to fail, a blinding emerald light burst from the river depths, making the undead masses recoil and shriek in pain. The dazzling glow intensified, revealing the graceful shape of a female figure made entirely of shimmering water. "The river goddess," Mama Shibanga said in awe, stopping her chant. The watery apparition faced them, features becoming clearer. It was Aziza, or at least her spiritual essence. She opened her mouth, and an ethereal voice echoed around them. "My reborn human form has been captured and tainted by the darkest underwater evils. You have braved their vile realm to find me." Aziza's mother cried out desperately, "Please, mighty goddess, you must purge the evil from our daughter and let her soul return to us." The river goddess's watery form crackled with energy as she responded. To do so now would disrupt the very balance of life and death itself. She has been too integrated into their twisted tribe. Aziza's father pleaded loudly, "There has to be a way. We'll sacrifice anything, pay any price to make her whole again." The goddess thought for a while before answering. "There is one last choice, a special ritual to put Aziza's living spirit and my own energy into a single new body, one that can be born from you to live in the physical world again, free from the underworld." The family quickly agreed, even though the goddess's words were confusing. She gave them instructions on doing an ancient ritual to prepare for the spirit transfer. As Mama Shibanga hurriedly led them through the steps, gathering strange ingredients from the river bottom, the undead creatures held back by the goddess's bright light stared hungrily, creeping closer. Finally, the ritual was complete. Aziza's mother gasped in pain and shock as a protective glowing bubble violently expanded from her stomach. Inside it, a tiny shining orb taking human shape, "It is done," the river goddess said, her brightness shining brighter than the sun. "I hereby give you this new life to cherish and protect, your daughter Aziza, reborn, filled with my own eternal energy to guide her. Raise her in my ways from now on." With those final words, the goddess's blinding energy streamed into the mystical orb. The bubble pulsed outward in a shockwave of force, violently pushing the undead masses back into the haunted river depths. When it finally dimmed, Aziza's parents opened their eyes to find the small orb had become a healthy newborn baby, cradled in Mama Shibanga's arms, surrounded by dazzling lights. The baby cooed and giggled, seeming completely peaceful. A tear rolled down the witch doctor's cheek as she looked at the miracle, carefully handing the reborn Aziza to her crying parents. They hugged the new life tightly, finally letting go of the traumas and fears from their scary journey. Though they had many questions about their daughter's incredible new existence, one thing was clear: her radiant spirit was going to change the world.